It's easy to criticise brands that have made their name on aggressively low price to performance when they steadily bump up costs and move away from their flagship killer routes. However, the OnePlus Nord feels like a step back and a reassessment of what we should expect from future mid-rangers. With that in mind, this is our review. Thanks for watching 9to5Google on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe and enable notifications with the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. So corner cutting is always an area that has become a bugbear for OnePlus fans and ourselves, but with mid-rangers requiring some savage readjustments to meet price demands. Because of that, it's interesting to see just how OnePlus has achieved said feat with the OnePlus Nord. In the past, the firm has struggled to pick the right areas to cut back. When the entire package is built on this premise, it's even harder to escape glaring holes on the checklist. Making big leaps into the mid-range market means that the OnePlus Nord feels like a consequence of consumer pushback and a shift into spending across the entire smartphone industry. Realigning with the original OnePlus vision of flagship performance at an affordable price tag has resulted in this great little package that is the OnePlus Nord. The OnePlus Nord does feel like a real improvement over the OnePlus 8 in terms of design, and more like a real successor to the OnePlus 7T from that design perspective. The candy bar stylings of the marble blue are one that instantly attracts attention, especially in a sea of glass slabs. This feels like a OnePlus smartphone with the same soft curves and playful design choices. It's a lightweight design that has a dense packed feel in the palm, and I think really helps enhance the faux premium feel. Plastic of course isn't a bad thing, as it can take much more punishment than soft metal, but you can definitely tell that this has plastic rails for instance. I must admit I like how the OnePlus Nord feels eminently more compact than the massive OnePlus 8 Pro, and while the ever so slightly boxier backplate also helps stabilise the handset when in your palm. I'm hoping as well the plastic side bezels don't chip or scratch too easily over time, but overall the package here feels great to hold and clasp, but dings and scrapes shouldn't be too much of an issue given how durable plastic is. Moving the camera module from that central position to the top left is something I personally really like, and it's a look that's unique for OnePlus smartphones too, with that vertical layout. Overall, it's a competent showcase of OnePlus's design and the colour material finish efforts in recent years. It's also nice to see a glossy smartphone, but there is no denying that a matte finish might have been more consistent with prior OnePlus smartphones. With that said, side by side with the OnePlus 8 series, and the OnePlus Nord feels much like the younger sibling that does most of the same things but with just the right omissions. Getting a 6.44-inch 90Hz Full HD Plus AMOLED panel within that sub $500 price bracket really feels like a smart move too. Rival devices often come with cheap LCD panels and are sort of expected when you lower your smartphone budget, but a good AMOLED is clearly an important part of the package here. Praise aside though, I have noticed some issues with the display at low brightness on my device. When getting below the 20% threshold, there is significant yellow or green tint issues on my particular unit. You can also see banding on the notched portion of the screen. I believe this might be a manufacturing fault with my device, but it is something to note if you were worried. While frustrating, this is a problem that only really appears when auto brightness is enabled. To alleviate, I often keep the brightness set at 60%, and I've had no issues since. The in-display fingerprint reader is just as good as those found on the OnePlus 8 and 8 Pro. I've had no issues at any point unless trying to unlock with wet fingers. I have noticed a slightly smaller activation area too, but it isn't a major problem for accuracy and consistency. Moving back to a flat display is also another important distinction that I think might make the OnePlus Nord a better buy than the OnePlus 8 for many people out there. Curved displays are great and all, but a flat display is just more comfortable to use for a gesture-based interface, and the OnePlus Nord is sort of proving that. Oxygen OS is of course one of the best experiences on Android, and it continues to impress with the OnePlus Nord. Oxygen OS 10.5 is just as snappy and slick as it is on the flagship 8 Pro. I find this is enhanced with that 90Hz display too, as animations feel smoother and interactions slightly more responsive. OnePlus has cleaned up the admittedly minor bloat a little further this time around too. You're treated to Google Messages, the phone dialer and Google Discover, which replaces OnePlus Shelf. However, setting up as a fresh device, Netflix and Facebook were pre-installed on my unit, and I only use a video streaming service, so this was a little bit of a shock out of the box. Of course, 2 years of OS updates and a further year of security patches is still a little irksome, when the similarly priced iPhone SE will get around 5 years of support. However, that is another argument for another day. The Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G is a compromise, but it keeps things ticking along nicely here. It's definitely not in the same league as a Snapdragon 865, but I've yet to see anything that has me wanting more juice from this chipset. Gaming has been smooth, apps load reasonably quickly, and it's a lack of UFS 3.1 storage that I feel is the most noticeable. The OnePlus 8 and 8 Pro are a step ahead when loading applications. Everywhere else, I actually haven't been able to notice the differences between the Snapdragon 765G and 865 day to day. The battery on the OnePlus Nord is pretty solid, but it definitely won't get you through multiple days unless you are a really light user. I've seen between 5 and 6 hours of screen on time throughout my time using the device as my main smartphone, and in most cases that has been enough. Being able to just slap the OnePlus Nord on the 30-watt warp charger is also great for taking you from near dead to full in no time at all. I must admit I won't lament the lack of wireless charging, as when the OnePlus 8 doesn't come with the cable-free charge method, it's unlikely to have come to the cheaper model. Charging speeds and method aside, I have no doubt that the OnePlus Nord will get you through most days and with plenty of headroom to spare. Of course, this phone comes with essentially the same camera setup as the OnePlus 8, which means you should have a pretty good idea of what to expect. The package is pretty good for the pricing, but it's not in any way exceptional. My biggest gripe is the digital zoom that instantly deteriorates when going past 2x. I'm not sure why a telephoto wasn't included, but it would have made at least some difference here. Ultra-wide shots can be particularly soft in certain lighting conditions, but I've made no secret of my lack of love for these type of shots anyway, so it doesn't affect your overall photo taking. The macro sensor also feels like a real waste. I've been unable to get anything impressive up close, while the depth sensor might make a difference, but the Pixel 3a manages to do more with a single sensor, and that too feels like it's been added to kind of make up the numbers here. At the front, the 32 megapixel selfie camera takes some really high quality selfies that are about the best I've seen on a OnePlus smartphone to date. If you're a fan of group selfies, then the ultra-wide 8 megapixel front-facing camera will be a real useful inclusion, but shots are admittedly softer, and it would have been nice to have an ever so slightly wider field of view. Overall though, the camera setup on the OnePlus Nord is about what you'd expect, and it's as good as it probably gets at this sub $400 price point. So a few notables before we round off the review. The bottom firing speaker really manages to get nice and loud, but it is tinny and lacks any real oomph. It's also really easy to cover when holding the device. Overall, it's not quite as good as stereo speakers from comparable smartphones. As for haptics, the only other Android device that matches the haptics on offer here is the Google Pixel 3a, and I would actually have to say that the haptics on the OnePlus Nord are probably the best on a sub $500 smartphone I've used. Every interaction or word typed has that satisfying clink, and buzzes really help improve your everyday experience. So in essence, the OnePlus Nord is about the first device that really tackles the existence of the Google Pixel 3a in any meaningful way. Yes, you can get cheaper Android smartphones in global markets, but the compromises often hold back the overall enjoyment of the experience of using said device on a day-to-day basis. At £379 or €399, the total package on offer here doesn't feel all too different to OnePlus devices such as the 7T or even the OnePlus 8. With prices of so-called flagship killer brands skyrocketing towards the $1,000 or £1,000 price points, we need far more options in and around that $400 to $500 price range. OnePlus has actually managed that here with the OnePlus Nord. Software is of course still one of the core components in this package, and it feels every bit as good as a regular OnePlus device. Oxygen OS is fast, fresh, and this genuinely feels like a rival to the Pixel 3a, the iPhone SE, and even likely the Pixel 4a, whenever that does come to market. That said, you get a heck of a lot of smartphone for your money. It's just disappointing that the first OnePlus Nord series device won't officially be available in the United States. To me, the OnePlus Nord feels like a gem in the OnePlus crown as the new go-to enthusiast Android smartphone that won't break the bank. You're getting essentially the OnePlus 8 experience, but at nearly half the price. And now there is no doubt that the Pixel 3a and upcoming 4a have some serious competition for those wanting clean software and a simplified hardware experience. With all that said though, if you have any questions about the OnePlus Nord, slap them down in the comments section below. Until next time, this is Damien with 95 Google saying thanks for watching, and I will speak to you later.